The HOA fined me for hunting the woods behind my home. So, I decided to teach them something they never saw coming. They called me a reckless old man with a gun problem. They threatened my house. They tried to erase my dignity with paperwork and fake authority. All because I walked the same land where I once taught my son how to hunt. The same boy we buried in a flag-draped coffin. They had no idea. I was about to turn their perfect little walking trail into my own private ground. Before we go any further, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe no one has the right to bully a man on his own land with a clipboard, hit subscribe. Because they walked straight into a trap they built themselves. It was one of those mornings you wait all year for. Cold enough to feel alive. Warm enough to breathe easy. The mist was lifting off the lake. And I had my garage door open. Same as I'd done every third Saturday in October for 30 years, cleaning my rifle. The smell of gun oil. The weight of steel in my hands. The soft metallic click of the bolt sliding home. Peace. My son, Evan, used to call it my meditation. He wasn't wrong. The rifle was a Winchester Model 70, passed down from my father. It was the same rifle I taught Evan with, back when his hands were too small and his smile was too big. He was better than me. At hunting, at patience, at life. When we lost him overseas, this ritual became more than habit. It became how I kept him close. That's when I heard gravel crunch. I looked up. A woman stood at the edge of my driveway, holding a clipboard like it was armor. Perfect posture. Tight haircut. Expensive workout clothes that said, "I have power here." I recognized her instantly. Linda Kessler. President of the HOA's Environmental Compliance Committee, self-appointed ruler of everything she could see. I nodded politely. She didn't. Instead, she raised her phone and snapped a photo of me in my own garage. Then she wrote furiously on her clipboard, ripped a sheet off with theatrical flair, and marched toward me. "Mr. Carter," she said sweetly, handing me the paper. "Violation notice." I didn't take it. "Violation for what?" I asked calmly. She pointed at my workbench. HOA Regulation 19C. Open. Display of firearms constitutes intimidation. An illegal hunting activity on HOA controlled land. She said it like she'd practiced in the mirror. I glanced past her, toward the woods. "Linda, those woods are county land. Always have been. And I'm on my own property." She smiled. A thin, cruel smile. "The board considers the visual corridor part of community-managed space." Visual corridor. I felt something tighten inside my chest. "That's a $250 fine," she continued. "Pay within 15 days. She tucked the paper under my windshield wiper and walked away like she'd just won something. She didn't know she'd crossed a line. 2 days later, I walked into the HOA office. I brought maps, county plats, property surveys, facts. Linda didn't even look at them. "Oh, Mark," she said casually, "we have updated documents." Then she leaned back. "Besides, rezoning is coming." Threat wrapped in a smile. She doubled the fine, suspended my lake access. That's when I understood. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. The board meeting was worse. She called me trigger-happy. The room laughed. They voted against me without discussion. 5-0. I walked out without a word. That night, standing at the tree line where Evan and I once walked together, I felt something settle inside me. Cold, focused, clear. "You took the wrong man's land," I whispered. And the fight began. They pushed. I stopped reacting. That calm I felt by the tree line didn't fade overnight. It hardened. Linda didn't slow down after the meeting. She accelerated. The letters started arriving 3 days later. Certified mail. Legal language. Threats wrapped in official letterhead. First came the lien warning. Failure to comply may result in foreclosure proceedings. Then, another notice. Mandatory property inspection for wildlife harassment. Clean, legal, relentless. The worst part came a week later. I woke up, poured my coffee, and looked out my kitchen window. And there it was. A massive metal sign planted at the trailhead behind my house. No hunting, nitrogen monoxide firearms. Violators will be prosecuted. They positioned it perfectly. So I'd see it every morning. So everyone else would too. It wasn't about safety. It was about humiliation. That weekend, my daughter Rachel came to visit. She walked in, hugged me, and immediately noticed the stack of HOA letters on the counter. "Dad, what's going on?" I told her everything. The garage, the fine, the meeting, the insults. She listened quietly, arms folded tight. Then she sighed. "Just pay it," she said softly. "It's $500. This isn't worth losing your house." I understood her fear. This house was where she grew up, where her brother learned to walk, where memories lived. But I shook my head. "They called me reckless," I said. "They mocked Evan's memory. Some things can't be bought off." She left that night worried. I stood alone in the kitchen long after she drove away. The neighborhood changed. People stopped waving. Cars slowed down near my house, then sped up. At the store, a couple I'd known for years turned their cart around when they saw me. I wasn't Mark anymore. I was the guy with the guns. Isolation has weight, and it sat heavy on my chest. 2 weeks passed in silence. Then there was a knock. It was Cal Turner, retired plumber, Vietnam vet, 3 houses down. He held up a 6-pack. "Figured you might need company." He walked in without waiting, set the beer down. "Linda fined me $300 last year," he said. "My wife had just died. Hose wasn't coiled right." Another knock. Nora Fields, widowed nurse, brought brownies. "She tried to label my beagle aggressive," she said quietly. One by one, they came. Not loud, not angry, just tired. We sat around my table, sharing stories of fines, threats, quiet humiliation. A pattern emerged, and Linda was always at the center of it. That night, something shifted. This wasn't just my fight anymore. After they left, I went to my workshop, pulled out my old engineering survey maps, not HOA copies. Professional-grade military surveys. I cross-referenced everything. Parcel numbers, easements, tax records. Hours passed. Then I found it. A discrepancy. Small but wrong. The parcel holding the HOA trail didn't match. I checked county tax records. Owner, Summit County. Tax status, delinquent. I stared at the screen. The HOA didn't own the land. They never had. And the taxes hadn't been paid in nearly 10 years. A slow smile crept across my face. Cold. Precise. I drove to the county records office. 3 nights in a row. Pulled original deeds. Survey notes. Auction filings. On the 3rd night, the clerk Mrs. Daniel slid a folder toward me. "Tax default auction," she said quietly. "Parcel goes up in 2 weeks. Starting bid, $8,200. I went home and sold stock I'd been saving for retirement. This wasn't retirement money anymore. This was defense. I placed my bid, quietly. Then, I paid the HOA fine. Took down the bird feeder. Let them think they'd won. Linda even sent out an email celebrating my compliance. She had no idea. 10 days later, an email arrived. Winning bid confirmation. I now owned every inch of the land they'd been policing, including their precious trail, including their pavilion. I didn't celebrate. I planned. When a bully thinks they've won, that's when the trap closes. I didn't celebrate when I won the land. I didn't smile. I didn't tell anyone. I went back to work. The following weekend, I rented a brush cutter and started clearing the edge of my property. The real boundary. Hard work. Sweat-soaked shirt. Hands blistered raw. It felt right. Like reclaiming something stolen. For a moment, I wondered if I could just keep quiet. Let the HOA exist in their fantasy. That hope lasted exactly 3 days. On the third morning, a golf cart screeched to a stop at the edge of my yard. Karen Whitlock, HOA enforcer, clipboard queen, jumped out. Her vice president, Derek Mills, followed behind filming with his phone. "What do you think you're doing?" she shouted. I shut off the machine. Clearing my land, she stepped forward, eyes blazing. "This is community green space. You're destroying HOA property." I wiped my hands slowly. "You should step back," I said calmly. "You're standing on my land." She laughed. "This is your final warning. We'll take legal action." Derek zoomed in on my face like he was recording a crime. Then she dropped the final weapon. "Until you publicly apologize, your lake access is revoked indefinitely. That lake, where my wife loved to sit, where my grandson learned to fish." I said nothing. I turned my back on them and walked away. That was the moment the war officially began. 2 days later, the HOA called an emergency community safety meeting. I didn't go. But Frank Morales, my neighbor and fellow vet, did. He came back pale. "She called you unstable," he said. "Said you're dangerous. Claimed you're running military-style operations in the woods." The board voted to seek a restraining order. Against me. Half the neighborhood turned on me overnight. Doors closed. Whispers followed. The other half stayed silent but watched. My daughter Emily called me in tears. "They're saying you're violent," she said. "Dad, please sell the house." That night, I almost gave up. I sat alone at the table, staring at the original fine notice. All this for one piece of paper? Maybe I was just an old man fighting ghosts. Then there was a knock. Frank stood there, holding 2 beers. He didn't say much. Just sat beside me. After a long silence, he nodded toward the woods. "You ever notice those trail signs don't line up with the old county stakes?" Something clicked. Hard. That night, we went out with my old survey-grade GPS. Not hobby equipment. Professional. Precise 2 centimeters. We started at the known corner marker. Measured. Staked. Measured again. Bright orange flags cut a perfect line through the trees. And then we saw it. The HOA pavilion. Benches. Concrete slab. Dedication plaques. All of it. 40 feet inside my land. Every bolt. Every post. Illegal. I didn't feel joy. I felt certainty. They were finished. The next morning, I moved fast. Registered Harper Ridge Wildlife Reserve LLC. Filed permits with Fish and Wildlife. Submitted management plans. Received approval. Everything legal. Everything clean. Then I called the county clerk, Mrs. Langley, and asked her to attend the next HOA meeting. She agreed. The meeting room was packed. Standing room only. Cameras. Neighbors. Tension. Karen was glowing. She was finishing her speech about protecting families. I raised my hand. "You have 3 minutes," she sneered. I walked past the podium, straight to the board table, laid down the deed. "This land you find me for," I said evenly. "It's mine." She laughed. "Forgery." Before anyone could react, Mrs. Langley stood up. "That document is valid," she said calmly. "Recorded last Tuesday." Silence. Karen's face drained of color. I rolled out the survey. "Your trail," I continued, "your pavilion, is illegal construction." Gasps. I raised my hand. "All HOA property on my land will be removed within 30 days. The room erupted. Karen stood shaking. "This isn't over," she hissed. She was right, but not how she thought. 2 days later, the smear campaign began. Online posts. Anonymous accusations. Claims I was poaching. Then came the false report. Illegal traps. I knew exactly what she'd do. So, I set trail cameras. Not to catch animals. To catch liars. 4 nights later, motion alert. There she was. Karen, planting wire snares, taking photos, trying to frame me. I saved everything. At the annual HOA election meeting, the room was packed. Karen stood proud. She began presenting her evidence. I waited, then stepped forward. Before that, I said, "Let's watch a short video." The footage played. Her face appeared on screen. Planting the trap. Gasps turned into shouts. Karen froze. Deputies stepped forward. She tried to run. Didn't make it. Applause erupted real. Thunderous applause. Power collapsed in real time. The old board resigned. A new one formed. Frank became president. First action. All fines rescinded. Bylaws rewritten. The pavilion stayed. But as a memorial, we mounted a new plaque. Veterans Memorial Shelter for those who defend their ground. Weeks later, Emily visited. We walked to the gate of the reserve. I installed a small brass plaque. She read it aloud. "In memory of Daniel Harper, he hunted with honor." She squeezed my hand. He'd be proud. As the snow fell softly, I felt peace. Not because I won, but because I stood. Some people think authority comes from a clipboard. It doesn't. It comes from truth. And when you push a quiet man too far, you learn exactly how strong silence can be.